Good morning, dear students. In this class, that is a revision class, we are going to see the leftmost topics, that is the service, system calls, and lastly, how the system calls is going to execute. There are three structures of the operating system and the virtual machine. In this class, we are going to see this one. So let me start the first point, that is a user interface. What do you mean by the user interface? What the things you are going to get? Okay, every OS must and should contain some user interface. What do you mean by the user interface? The question arises. What do you mean by that one? So the meaning is very simple. See, the one user using the system. This user is going to provide some inputs, some information to this computer. So to provide that information, to provide that data to the computer, he needs something that is called as an interface. Like you are reading the book, but you are not getting the points. That is, you are taking the book, and by taking the book, you are going to read, but you don't get the things. Then the doubts is going to arise. How you are going to clear the doubt? By the teacher, that is by me. So you'll ask a question to me, then I am going to clear with you people that I am going to read that book, then I am going to convey that this is the thing. What I am going to do now? Between your book and you, I am there. That is the interface between you and your book. Like that, user interface is a main part of the operating system. Operating system ನಲ್ಲಿ ಇರಬೇಕಾದಂತ operating system ಕೊಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂತ ಸರ್ವಿಸಸ್ ಮೇನ್ ಸರ್ವಿಸಸ್ ಯಾವುದು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಯೂಸರ್ ಇಂಟರ್ಫೇಸ್. ಅದೇ ಯೂಸರ್ ಇಂಟರ್ಫೇಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಯೂಸರ್ ಮತ್ತು ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ನಡುಬರ್ಕ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಎಸ್ಟಾಬ್ಲಿಷ್ ಮಾಡೋದು. Communication in the sense what user want to give to the operating system, that is taken by the interface. Two types of interface ಬರ್ತಾವ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದೆ. One is CUI, command line interface or command user interface. Another one is GUI, graphical user interface ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದೆ. ಕಮಾಂಡ್ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ವರ್ಕ್ ಆಗ್ತಕ್ಕಂತ ಆಪರೇಟಿಂಗ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಗೆ ಕಮಾಂಡ್ ಯೂಸರ್ ಇಂಟರ್ಫೇಸ್ ಆಪರೇಟಿಂಗ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತೀವಿ. ಗ್ರಾಫಿಕಲ್ ಯೂಸರ್ ಇಂಟರ್ಫೇಸ್ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ವರ್ಕ್ ಆಗ್ತಕ್ಕಂತ ಆಪರೇಟಿಂಗ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಗೆ GUI ಆಪರೇಟಿಂಗ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತೀವಿ. ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್, ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ವಿತ್ ರೆಡ್ ಹ್ಯಾಟ್. There, if you want to create a file, in the sense you are going to use a cat versus command. ಲಕ್ಷಿರ್ಲಿ ಯೂಸರ್ ಇಂಟರ್ಫೇಸ್ ಎರಡು ರೀತಿ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಬರ್ತಾವ, ಒಂದು CUI ಮತ್ತು GUI. CUI ಗೆ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ your red hat. In red hat you are going to create a file using cat, and you are going to create a file using vi command. Vi file name .c. Am I right? So here I am going to come Windows. How you are going to create a file? You will get a right click ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಿ. You are going to right click in the menu. You are going to select a new. There you are going to select a file. Then you will create the file. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕಮಾಂಡ್ ಅನ್ನ ಟೈಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮೌಸ್ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ಕ್ಲಿಕ್ ಇವೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಮಾಡಾಕತ್ತೀರಿ. ಎದರ ಮೇಲೆ ಕ್ಲಿಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಿ? ಕಾಣತಕ್ಕಂತ ಇಮೇಜ್ ಮೇಲೆ. How the image is going to form? By the graphics. That is graphical user interface. The main service is provided by the operating system is it is going to provide us an interface which we can communicate with the computer. That is called as a user interface. Have you clear with this point? Raise your hand if it is clear. User interface is clear. Now let me come to the second point, that is a program execution is the main service given by the operating system to the user. What do you mean by that, sir? A user is going to write a program, then this program is going to load it onto memory. Assume that a plus b is there in this program. A plus b, that is addition operation is there. This program is loaded into the memory. Then it is known as, when a program is loaded onto the memory, execution is going to under the execution. The program is under the execution. Then it is called as process. When a program is loaded onto the memory, or else when a program is under the execution. Execution in the sense, when that program is loaded onto the memory, that is known as the execution. When a program under the execution or loaded on the memory is called as process. After that program, after that process, the process will be sent to CPU. Program will be loaded on the memory, then that program, that is a process, will be loaded onto the processor. There you will get a output. See, the question arises, I have written a program, as a user I have written a program, the program is going to memory, then it is going to CPU, then I will get the output. I know this phase, Idu and this one is visible to me. Visible in the sense, I know I'm writing a program. I know I'm getting output. ಈ ಎರಡು ಸಿಗುದ್ರ ಮಧ್ಯೆ ಏನದಲ್ಲ in between these two, the work done by whom? Loading the program into the memory, then sending it to the CPU, then processing it, then giving the output. Whose work it is? Who is giving service? That is operating system. This is called as a program execution. This is called as a program execution. I hope you clear with the program execution. Am I right? Are you clear with the program execution? Well, the next topic is the third one, IO operation. IO operation. What do you mean by the IO operation? Sir, what do you mean by the IO operation? What is the service it is giving? IO operation andre ಏನು ಅಂತಂದಾಗ a process is there, P1, which is waiting for mouse, which is nothing but input device. This is nothing but your input device, but the mouse is already allocated to the P2, that is the process. So OS is here, the P1 is going to request for the OS for the purpose of mouse, but OS is already given the mouse to P2, mouse to P2. Then OS have to message this, ಈ ಸರ್ವಿಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕೊಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ IO ಸರ್ವಿಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ನೀನು ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ ನಾನು, ಒಂದ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ವೇಟ್ ಮಾಡು. When P2 get terminate, that is execution, when mouse is got free, then immediately it will be allocated to P1. Further things, if user entered a key, ಒಂದು key ಅನ್ನ ಪ್ರೆಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ, user key ಅನ್ನ ಪ್ರೆಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ, where the key is pressed? In the input device, that is a keyboard. Then that message, that information is going to taken by the OS. When you press the key, that message will go to the OS. What message? This key press is for P3. This key press is for P3. You will send some messages. ಗೇಮ್ ಆಡೋ ಮುಂದಾಗ ನೀವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರ್ತೀರಿ, ಗೇಮ್ ಆಡೋ ಮುಂದಾಗ ರೈಟ್ ಲೆಫ್ಟ್ ಒಂದಷ್ಟು ಸ್ಪೆಷಲ್ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಬರ್ತಾವ. ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ಹಿಡಿದು ಬಿ ಹೊಡೆದಿರಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಏನೋ ಬೋಲ್ಡ್ ಅಥವಾ ಏನೋ ಒಂದ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಓಕೆ, I exactly don't know what is the game, how to play the game, but I'm telling that you will press some special keys for special functions. So if P3 is a game, assume that if it is a game, you will press something. Assume that you will press right arrow mark. This process have to move right side. ನೀವು ಕಾರ್ ಗೇಮ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ರಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ರೈಟ್ ಲೆಫ್ಟ್ arrow keys ಇದಾವ, ಅಪ್ ಡೌನ್ arrow keys ಇದಾವ. am I right? ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಕೀ ಅನ್ನು ಪ್ರೆಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ right, this process should be moved right side. The message, when you press the key, the message will be received by the OS, then it will be conveyed to P3. So it is performing what? Input ಕೊಟ್ಟಂತ ಆಪರೇಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ OS P3 ಗೆ ಒಯ್ದು ಕೊಡುತ್ತದೆ. That is one kind of service, input and ಔಟ್ಪುಟ್ ಆಪರೇಷನ್ಸ್. ಈಗ ನೀವೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರ ಪ್ರಿಂಟ್ ಕೊಡ್ತೀರಿ, ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ಪಿ ಹೊಡೆದು ಪ್ರಿಂಟ್ ಕೊಡ್ತೀರಿ. ಸೊ ಹೌ ಮೆನಿ ಕಾಪೀಸ್? 2 copies. How many copies? 2 copies. ಇಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲೋ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಪ್ರಿಂಟರ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ. Print 2 copies. This message will be carried by to the printer, carried by OS. This message will be carried by OS. Print 2 copies. OS ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತತಿ? ಪ್ರಿಂಟರ್ ಗೆ ಕನೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ತತಿ, IO ಆಪರೇಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಮಾಡಿ ಕೊಡ್ತದೆ. Have you clear with this? Have you clear with this? The next thing is file manipulation. File manipulation in the sense ಫೈಲ್ ಗೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಂತ ಆಪರೇಷನ್ಸ್, ಫೈಲ್ ಗೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಂತ ಆಪರೇಷನ್ಸ್, ಕ್ರಿಯೇಷನ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಲಿ, ಡಿಲೀಷನ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಲಿ, ರೀಡ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಲಿ, ರೈಟ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಲಿ, ಓಕೆ, ಮೋಡಿಫಿಕೇಶನ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಲಿ, ಯಾವ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಬರ್ತಾವ್ರಿ? ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟಿಂಗ್ ಅ ಫೈಲ್, ಓಪನ್ ಫೈಲ್, ಕ್ಲೋಸ್ ಫೈಲ್, read file, write file. These all are the functions which are belongs to the file. If you do these works, it is known as an operation, that is a manipulation. That is known as a manipulation. So what do you mean by the creating a file? So you will create a information in such a way that file. You are going to write a program, then you are going to give the extension. When the extension comes to the C, it is considered as a C programming file. When it is come to the Java, it is considered as a Java file. When it is come to the doc, it is considered as documentation file. ಯಾರು ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂತಾರ? ಇದು ಸಿ ಟೈಪ್, ಇದು ಜಾವಾ ಟೈಪ್, ಇದು ಡಾಕ್ ಟೈಪ್, ಇದು ಪಿಪಿಟಿ, ಇದು ಎಕ್ಸೆಲ್. ಅದೇ ಓಎಸ್ ಒಳಗೆ ಓಪನ್, ಅದೇ ಸಾಫ್ಟ್ವೇರ್ ಒಳಗೆ ಓಪನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು. ನೀವು ನೋಡ್ರಿ, ಯಾವಾಗ್ಲೂ ನೀವು ವರ್ಡ್ ಡಾಕ್ಯುಮೆಂಟ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಡಬಲ್ ಕ್ಲಿಕ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ವರ್ಡ್ ಓಪನ್ ಆಗ್ತೈತಿ, ಎಕ್ಸೆಲ್ ಓಪನ್ ಆಗಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. ನೀವು ಎಕ್ಸೆಲ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಕ್ಲಿಕ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಎಕ್ಸೆಲ್ ಓಪನ್ ಆಗ್ತೈತಿ, ವರ್ಡ್ ಒಳಗೆ ಓಪನ್ ಆಗಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಯಾರು ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿರ್ತಾರೆ ಇದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ? ಅದನ್ನ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಹೋಗಿ ಓಪನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು. ಅದನ್ನ ಕ್ಲೋಸ್ ಬಟನ್ ಒತ್ತಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಆ ಫೈಲ್ ಕ್ಲೋಸ್ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕು. ಓಪನ್ ಅಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ಡ್ ಇದ್ದಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಒಂದು ವಾಟ್ ಯು ಕಾಲ್ ಫೈಲ್ ಓಪನ್ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕು. ಯಾರು ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಇದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ? ಫೈಲ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಮ್ಯಾನಿಪುಲೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ ನಾವು, ಮಾಡಿಫಿಕೇಶನ್ಸ್, ಈ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೆಲಸಗಳಿಗೆ ಮ್ಯಾನಿಪುಲೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. Those who are going to do this one, that is a OS. That is a OS. Creating a file, deleting a file, opening a file, giving the file name, extensions. By understanding the extensions, it is going to separate the files. Those it is done by nothing but your OS. That is called as the special service file system manipulation. Are you clear with the file system? So the next one is communication. Let me understand what is a communication. How OS is going to support us, or how OS is going to give the service in the communication. Communication in the sense the processes are going to communicate with each other. Illi processes are going to communicate with each other. How, sir? How it is going to communicate? See, let me see. The R1 is a resource. The resource is going to represent as a dot. Remember it, further classes, in the further class resource allocation graph, you will get a resource allocation graph. There you need to remember that if you present a dot, if you see the dot, R ಮುಂದೆ dot ಇತ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ that is considered as a resource. The P1 and P2, the OS. This diagram tells clearly about the communication. What do you mean by the communication? If P1 needs the R1, P1 ಗೆ R1 ಬೇಕಾಗದ, but what happens? It is requested. Already P2 is given a request, but already P0 is the resource is given for the P0. So P2 is requested. Luxury, what I am telling here, R1 and P0 hatra R1 already other. Until P0 release, P2 will not get the this resource 1. Already P2 ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತಿ ರಿಕ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡೈತಿ OS ಗೆ. Now at the present when it is request, P1 comes and tells to the OS that I required R1. OS come to OS ಹತ್ರ ಬರ್ತೈತಿ P1 R1 ಬೇಕಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. It is very urgent to the P1 comparatively with the P2. What I need to do now? OS is going to tell, see my dear P1, see my dear P1, it is already R1 is with P0. Okay, until P0 release, I won't give you. Even P0 releases, it will go to first P2. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ first request ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದು ಯಾರದರ P2. Now the P1 is going to pass the message to P2 that it will pass the message urgent. Just assumption, hinge ಕೊಡ್ತೈತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. Just assumption. For the understanding purpose, I am telling to you people. It will pass a message to OS. Then that message is going to pass urgent for P1. If it agrees, if the process is agrees, if the process ಒಂದು ಸಿಚುವೇಶನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ, ಇದು ಹಿಂಗ ಆಗ್ತದಂತಲ್ಲ ಅಸ್ಯೂಮ್ಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್? ಸೊ ಮ್ಯೂಚುವಲ್ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಈ ರಿಸೋರ್ಸಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊತಾವ. ಇವಿಬ್ಬರದು ಇವೆರಡರ ನಡಬರ್ಕ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಎಸ್ಟಾಬ್ಲಿಷ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂತ ಒಂದು ಸರ್ವಿಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕೊಡ್ತದೆ ಯಾರು? OS. Have you clear with the communication? The lastmost one, that is a error detection. What do you mean by the error detection? Assume that this hardware and the process P1, OS is there. Some portion of the hardware is corrupted, or it is not used for the P1. It is very harmful. It is very thin layers where a P1 cannot fit. So at that time, it will request for hardware. The hardware will be allocated, but further we got up to here, the error will be detected. The error will be detected by whom? The OS. This hardware is corrupted. So before going to cause an error, before going to get into the error, it will detect the error. This hardware is containing some errors. This software is containing some errors. So by detecting the error, it is going to display your error. User. So that is a special service given by the error detection. It will detect the error from the hardware or a software. It will display the error. That is error detection. Have you clear with this one? Error detection. Now let me learn some important terms here. OS gives the special services to us. What is that? What do you mean by that services? So what happens here? P1 request for R1. How many instances are there? R1 ಒಳಗಡೆ ಎಷ್ಟು instances ಅದಾವ? Dot ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತದಲ್ಲ, that is an instance. Dot ಏನ್ represent ಮಾಡಾಕತ್ತಲ್ಲ, that is known as instance. How many instances are there in the R1? One instance. How many instances are in the R2? Two instances. So P1 request for R1. Whether R1 is free now? Yes, it is free. Then it will be given to the, I will draw a diagram. Neat line. I'm going to draw it. Okay. It will be given to P1. What OS did here? ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತು OS? P1 requests for the resource, then that resource is allocated to the process. What OS did here? It got the request for resource allocation and resource will be allocated. It is called as service called as this service is named as resource allocation. What it is named as? Resource allocation. But with the resource allocation topic, this is also one kind of a service. This is also one kind of a service. So next what happens here? The P2 is going to request for R1. The P2 is going to request for R1. Luxury. P2 is going to request for R1. But the OS already P2 R1 and yari kottada P1 kottada. Correct? The P1 is already having a R1. P1 is already having a R1. So what happens here? What happens? The OS is going to message to P2, wait for a while, the P1 releases the R1, he will get it. How the OS is know R1 is allocated to P1? How the OS got R1 is going to be with P1? That is, it is maintaining a account. That is known as accounting. That is, OS maintains the information which resource is allocated to which process. ಇದರಿಂದ ಏನಾಗ್ತದೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಕೊಲಿಷನ್ ಆಗಂಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸಸ್ ಸ್ಲೋ ಆಗಂಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಸ್ಪೀಡ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಒನ್ ಕೈಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಅ ಸರ್ವಿಸ್. ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಸರ್ವಿಸ್ ಇದೆ, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಸ್ಪೆಷಲ್ ಸರ್ವಿಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ P3 is not related to R2 and R1. P3 is not related to R1 and R2, but it tries to access the R1. Yes, OS already ಗೊತ್ತಿರ್ತತ್ರಿ. ಈಗ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಹೆಂಗ್ ಹೇಳಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, okay, of course, the one student who is not from the Vedant enters into the college, try to access the classroom. Is it possible? No, it is not possible, because the record is maintained who is our student and who is from others. Who is our student and who is from others. Okay, so ಇಲ್ಲೇನಾಗ್ತದೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತದೆ ಇವ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಕಾಲೇಜ್ ಹುಡುಗ ಅದಾನ, ನಮ್ಮ ಕಾಲೇಜ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಬಿಡಬಾರ್ದು. How you know that one? The record will be maintained by the some official persons. That may be HOD, that may be a principal. They all know who is our student. ಹಂಗೆ OS ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರ್ತದೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಪ್ರೊಟೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಿರ್ತದೆ. This P3 is not related to R1. P3 is not related to R2. It will create the wall. That is protection and security to the resources. It gives the protection and security to the resources. It's a protection and security to the. Okay, have you clear with all the services? Only 6 minutes are there. I cannot complete the layered structure and monolithic structure. What do you call it? The 3 structures. I will upload the video offline. Okay, I will upload the video offline. In the next session, we are going to start with the unit 2. We'll discuss the syllabus first, then we are going to move with the topics. It is a easy one and it causes us 30 marks or 25 marks in the examination. That is second unit. Okay, let me discuss what is a system call here. System call. Let me understand what is a system call. A program written by the user, it will come to the system when user presses the enter. This program comes here. This is called as pool. When you press the enter, it will enter into the pool. You will learn in the next unit, that is a job pool, process pool, that is a job queue andrenu, process queue andrenu. You will understand in the next process scheduling. Okay, it will enter into the pool. Pool in the sense, there comes a one place in the memory. There several processes are waiting for the execution. ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋರಿ. ಈಗ ನೀವು ಬಂದಿರ್ತೀರಿ, ನಿಮ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ನಿಮ್ಗೊಂದೇನೋ ಒಂದು ಮೆಜರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ನಡೀತಾ ಇರ್ತದೆ ಅಂತ ತಿಳ್ಕೊರಿ. assume that 50 students are there, they are measuring for your blazers. Someone measuring for your blazers, blazer measure ಮಾಡ್ತಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಒನ್ ಬೈ ಒನ್ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕಾ ನೀವು? ಸೊ ನಿಮ್ಗೊಂದು ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ರೂಮ್ ಅನ್ನು ನಾನು ಅಲೋಕೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ, that is called as a pool. There are various of programs. When you press and enter, that will be jumped into the pool. Okay, that pool is called as a job pool. That called as job pool. We will understand in the process scheduling. A pool ಒಳಗಡೆ enter ಆಯ್ತು, then a system call is going to invoke. What is that? Create process. Create process. When it enters into the job pool, a system call will invoke. A system call is written in a C programs that are the functions, process, communication, and various sectors ಒಳಗಡೆ ಒಂದಷ್ಟು built in system calls ಅದಾವ. That is not for your syllabus, but I am telling that program create a process. System call ಯಾರಿಗೆ create a process ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಾಕತ್ತಿ? For whom? That is OS. That is for OS. Then OS goes to the program and it will fetch. It will fetch. It will fetch. Then again it memory. When it comes to the memory, load. Yes, of course, if you have a process load, then the P1 is going to load here. System calls ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕತ್ತಾವ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ OS ಜೊತೆ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ, OS ಜೊತೆ OS ದಿಂದ ಸರ್ವಿಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿಕ್ಕೆ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂತ ಒಂದು C ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರತಕ್ಕಂತ ಒಂದು ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತೀವಿ ನಾವು, ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಕಾಲ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತೀವಿ. Have you clear with the system calls? Have you clear with the system calls? Have you clear with the system calls? My dear students, this is a revision class. I have told very efficiently in the previous sessions. Please watch the video and then come to the things. Okay? Thank you for attending the session. This completes the revision class. This completes the revision class. Thank you very much for attending the classes.